The cold was supposed to be their refuge. It had always been their solace, a constant when everything else fell away. Yet, as it stood among the snowdrifts and frozen pines, it felt nothing but suffocating silence. The familiar chill, once a comforting embrace, now gnawed at them differently. It whispered the names of those they had pushed too far, those who hadn't made it through the lean seasons. Memories came unbidden, sharp and cutting. Faces hollowed by hunger, eyes dull with exhaustion. They saw themselves, relentless in their cravings, driving others closer to the edge. Friends they had once laughed with, families they had once relied upon, reduced to withered forms, scraping at the bottom of their stores. Strangers, too, their lives upended by their ceaseless need. Faces that blurred into the mosaic of their guilt. And the dead, those who had fallen in the most excruciating ways, the slow, desperate starvation, the futile attempts to cling to life. Did they follow, their hollowed eyes staring from the darkness of the woods, waiting for justice? The claws flexed against the icy ground, trembling. Tribal justice demanded reconciliation. It was not just law, but survival, the bond that held their people together even in the cruelest of winters. To face the loved ones of those they had wronged would be the only path to healing, for both them and the tribe. But how could they enter those tents where grief had taken root? How could they bear the scorn, the accusations, the raw, unfiltered rage of the bereaved? Their imagination conjured it vividly, the sharpness of words cutting deeper than any blade, the shameful weight of being seen as nothing more than the sum of their worst actions. The thought paralyzed them, and so they turned away, the burden of reconciliation too great to bear. Today, at least. Tomorrow, perhaps, or the next season when the snow had melted and the ice gave way to spring. Surely time would dull the edges of grief and anger. Surely their presence would not sting as deeply once the seasons had turned. For now they would hunt, they would care for themselves, build up their strength, their resolve, gather gifts for their apologies, pelts of rare animals, stores of food to sustain those they had once deprived, tokens of sincerity to buy their way back into the tribe's broken trust. It was easier this way, to tell themselves that they were preparing, that they could not approach empty-handed, that this too was a step towards healing, even as they knew it for what it was, delay. The snow crunched beneath their feet as they moved deeper into the forest, the familiar rhythms of survival taking hold. The guilt still lingered at the edges of their thoughts, but they buried it beneath the hunt. For now it was easier to think of the next kill, the next shelter, the next day. The journey to healing could wait a little longer. Another day, another week, another season. But deep down they knew that the weight of their guilt would only grow heavier with time, and the path to forgiveness would only grow steeper the longer they delayed. Still, they pushed the thought away and let the comfort of routine take over. The cold wind howled through the trees, but it could not drown out the whispers of what they had left undone. The storm was supposed to pass. It always did, eventually. But this one lingered, clawing at the earth with unrelenting fury. Day after day the snow piled higher, and the winds screamed louder, drowning out even the voices in their own mind. What was meant to be a brief delay in their trek of reconciliation stretched into weeks, and the dream of arriving at the village with arms full of riches began to feel like a cruel taunt. The sack of offerings had been their pride, heavy with dried bear and salmon, fragrant leather, and furs thick enough to warm the most weathered warriors. Each piece had been gathered with care, their hunger held at bay through sheer will as they prepared for the journey that would mend what had been broken. But now, in the icy grip of the storm, that very pride mocked them. Trapped in a small, drafty shelter, they stared at the sack as their stomach gnawed at itself, the gnawing growing louder and sharper with each passing day.